I'd like to call the meeting to order. The Board of Leavenworth County Commissioners. I'd like to invite everyone to stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to start with a moment of silence. I'd like to remember the Dwayne Reed family. Dwayne passed away last week. He was a retired county employee. Roll call. I'll start with Commissioner Culberson. Here. Commissioner Cos.
Here.
Commissioner Smith is present. Commissioner Hemke.
Yep.
And Commissioner Stevens.
Yep.
Commissioners are all present. I'd like to open up the public comment portion of our meeting. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, please come forward, state your name.
Hey there.
Morning.
Morning.
Matt O'Brien, how are you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. I'm a resident out of Tonganoxie. Been having an issue. I've been on the phone doing some emails for about a year and a half and not getting any answers that I'm trying to figure out. So been actually on the phone with a couple of you on the stand. But what I have is I live on 211th and Donahue. And on 200 or Donahue Road, there's a wedding venue. It's in Deer Ridge Estates. When we bought our land, I'm actually the corner house right there on 211th and Donahue. When we built our house and bought the land, that venue wasn't there. I have no problem with the venue being there. The issue is it was permitted in a residential neighborhood. It is gravel. My issue with it is, and what's not right for me, is when they have a wedding, I get hit by 300 cars coming into that venue and I get hit by all of it. One way in, one way out. So I've asked talked to a couple different people, everybody agrees that there is, it's not right. Paving it, chip and sealing, very least oiling, the road should be done. Most of those weddings are at 6 o'clock at night. So as you imagine 6 o'clock when we're coming home from work, all the neighborhood, that's what we have to deal with on that one way in, one way out road. There is another road on Kissinger to get into Deer Ridge, but most of the homes are on the other side, which is on the Donahue side. So it'd be us going out of our way. Like I said, in the emails and stuff, I've never asked for the whole neighborhood to be chip and sealed, just the road going to the venue at very minimum. But that's my issue, and I haven't had any answers. I've talked to engineering, public works. Everybody agrees that something should have been done. It's not. So I'm here today to plead my case, maybe make this my second home for a while until this gets fixed or give me some answers. But I'm trying to think of anything. Like I said,
What was your address?
it's 21116 Donahue Road.
It was approved by the previous board.
You know what date that was?
2016 it was approved, I believe.
Yeah,
Was it
It
a
was an
five?
election year.
Was it a 5-year?
Is
Five-year
that, I think he says a 10-year.
10 year.
It's
It's
a 10-year permit?
Yeah.
10-year permit. There was no restrictions or nothing that had to be done.
For real.
Yeah, and if you look on that road on Donahue, the south side of the road, it's all trees. So when you're going down that road, even just one car, and there's no rain, it's a big dust ball, it just sits there and circulates. So when you have multiple cars, and even us trying to get out of the neighborhood, when all those cars are coming, we have to stop. I mean, the dust is just so thick, so.
Having not read the special use permit, could I ask Jeff, are you familiar with this?
This is the first time I'm hearing this.
Oh, okay, so I'd be interested to know if there's anything that's
I just
in
told
this.
you there wasn't.
Okay, so you're familiar with it?
I'm very familiar.
Okay.
Well, mine.
And Mr.
Okay.
Matthews is also. But no, they do nothing. And it's a very successful business.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't have any problem with the
So-
business, the county making money on it. I just feel like, it's permitted from the county, this is a county issue on this road.
Matt,
I agree.
I don't want you to give your number out in the meeting, but can you give Jeff Joseph your phone number before you leave?
Which one?
Jeff Joseph is our planning and zoning director. Can you
Okay.
get your phone number to him before you leave?
Yep.
And then we'll look
And-
into it.
Like I said,
Call you back.
the previous board approved it, created the problem, so we're probably gonna have to own it.
So Matt, just to
Some
confirm,
way.
you haven't been in touch with anybody in planning and zoning to date?
No.
Because although the board approves it,
I
the
got-
process flows through planning and zoning.
So I did talk to, and I talked to her on a different issue, or a different permit that I was trying to get done at the house. And then that's when I had found out through her from planning and zoning, I was trying to ask her, I was like, when it was zoned, was there any stipulations, which previous phone calls, I knew there probably wasn't, but I was trying to look for, and she had said there wasn't. And she gave me a name of in engineering, Mike Shoemaker, or
Spicklemeyer.
Spicklemeyer.
yes, I knew I was gonna say the last name wrong. But, and I had talked to him, he agrees. They did put out, traffic strips on, that was in November, during the off-season of the, venue, on a Monday and a Tuesday.
Traffic counters.
So,
And, obviously the venue, the main events are during summer, weekends,
Right.
Friday and Saturday.
so if you probably go through them, and then maybe they can bring us some options back to,
Well,
Consider-
and Mike said, hey, just call me next time they have a venue, and he would lay them out. And I've called, I haven't got anything back, but the venue place, you guys know the name of them, but I'm not getting any feedback from them saying, hey, when's the next venue, so I can have the county come out and traffic strip the road.
have you communicated with them about the issues?
Just made a phone call, just saying, hey, just trying to get the road taken care of. That's it, I didn't get a call back.
Yeah.
We'll
Just
check
trying
it.
to figure out the actual dates of venues so I can go back to Michael and say, hey, these are the dates, put out strips to monitor the road. But,
Well, we are doing traffic counts this year, and we are monitoring the counts, and that's how we're prioritizing taking gravel to hard surface. So,
Do you know if that venue has a website that they advertise?
Deer Ridge Estates.
Okay.
Oh,
Can you give him that too?
Yep.
And John, do you remember this coming before the planning board? It was a couple years
I'm
ago.
sorry, what?
Do you remember this coming before the planning board?
3 years ago, yeah.
Do you remember it? Did they address the road traffic issue at all?
No, because it sets back from the main road. He's got a valid point about the cars still gotta be out there on the road, kick it up to dust, et cetera, and I'll say a traffic jam type situation. But the event barn itself and everything is,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say 100 yards off the road. But don't quote me on that.
It's
I didn't measure
It's farther.
It's a nice facility, it's a very
I've been there.
successful business.
Yeah, I've been there.
It's,
And we
we're lucky to have it.
Yes.
We just
It's a
got
nice
to,
place.
Of course, it would have been carried through
Make it
like
fit.
Chairman Smith
Okay.
says, and approved by this board.
Yeah, I was just curious if there was something that they were supposed to do that they didn't follow through with, maybe if you remember
No,
on
they
the board.
comply with everything.
Okay.
Right.
No, they're,
Okay, we'll check it out and get back with you for sure.
right.
Check on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's all I have this time.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, if anybody's not been out there, it's a really nice facility.
Yeah, I've been there.
to go to.
Um,
Anyway, anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
want to go.
Then we'll close.
I just
A
have
couple more.
real quick here.
All right.
And this is, I know this is not the time for this. This is the sand pit. I live right at where they're gonna put that sand pit. And that's all I want to tell you is I read each other a letter. and I have a little photo of my home. And I would just ask that you read it, consider it, and that's all I ask.
Is this the one I got this morning?
I'm sorry?
Is this the letter I got this morning?
Yeah, it had photos
Okay.
in there?
I know where you live.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. All I wanted to ask. Please
Okay.
consider it. I know that
I didn't catch your name.
What's your name?
Ralph Wiggins. I live right at the corner of DeSoto Road and Green. This property that they're gonna try to destroy backs up right to my property line. And I have a private well like most people out there do. And there's no way that they're gonna tear this thing up without just destroying my water supply. Plus, I mean, I'm not gonna take your time because I know this is not the time for it, but I just wanted to ask for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You. Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? And we will close public comment, move on to administrative business. Any administrative business this time?
I have a couple of items. First of all, just wanted to thank the commission and all the department heads for working through the budget. We will be presenting the budget. The clerk will be putting the necessary notifications in the newspaper. This flat mill levy as discussed. But I again, just appreciate all the work that everybody did. Well, she'll have it for you. To put it in there, and then you'll vote on the 21st. It'll be on the 21st, so.
Okay.
We have to have
So-
a public hearing first.
So we don't actually make a motion to vote
Well-
approve the flat mill levy until the 21st?
The 21st is when the budget will be approved. That's the actual date. It has to be published and whatnot. It's not official until then. You can't vote to approve it until then. You can, if you would like to vote to have the clerk proceed with the normal process, you can do that, if that's what you'd like to do. But as of right now, based on the conversations and work sessions, that's what's going to be put in.
Yeah, we have to have a specific.
Right, but I
public
mean,
hearing.
I'd just soon have a motion
We
that
can't
move it
vote.
forward to publish it, or to publish it, a notice in the paper.
That's, certainly can do that.
Motion.
So am I correct, from what I understand, is that we can decide that the mill levy should be reduced by a quarter mil up till the day we vote? Is that correct?
On the day that you vote to approve it, it'll be published in the newspaper. Once it's published in the newspaper, it can't be changed up, but it can be changed down.
It can be reduced, so we
Okay.
could have an
So we
opportunity
can just
to
wait
vote.
till then. All right. All right.
So do you want a motion? to
No,
publish?
not if we, they'll publish a budget, and then we'll have a budget hearing, and that's when we'll vote.
Right.
Right, that's when the vote is, and
Okay.
you can't change it up, but you can change it down on that
Okay.
date, actually, so. And then I think the county councilor had something to cover too.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, good morning. David Van Paris. Commissioners, you have various matters in front of you from which from time to time direct communication is made to you by attorneys representing your constituents or other parties. I would just caution you that in the event that you receive communications from an attorney where they state their representation of either an entity or an individual, please refrain from future contact directly with either that person or entity. Since they're represented by counsel, all communications should go through their counsel. If you're contacted either by the individual or entity, please express that you realize that they have legal counsel and that you need to communicate through them. That's to avoid miscommunications, misunderstandings, and any misapprehension that somehow undue influence is attempting to be applied to either the person or entity.
I have a question about that.
Yes, sir.
If, for example, a group that's representing certain individual citizens that are dealing with the proposed sand pit, if they have retained an attorney, then are you saying I should refrain from communication with those constituents?
If they have formally advised you that they have legal representation, or indicated to you that they have legal representation, the answer is yes. and you should express to them it is not a means to cut off communication or prevent any information from reaching you, but they now have a different avenue of doing so, and that needs to be followed. If they wish you to be able to communicate directly, they should have their attorney, legal representation, make that statement to the board as a body through formal communication.
Okay. And would this include, even if they had just in a general way issued a legal memo related to issues related to the same?
Commissioner, I would suggest to err on the side of caution in this event, if only to, again, avoid the misapprehension that somehow an individual with legal representation was contacted directly by any representative of the county outside of their legal counsel.
Thank you.
Any other administrative business?
No, sir.
I do have one. I received an invitation to go to a state legislative summit at Riley County. It's going to be discussing Senate Bill 190, the dark store property appraisal theory, some other issues that we believe is at the state. And I didn't know if one of the other commissioners wanted to go along.
I would like to.
And it's on August 29th. It's at Riley County. So that'd be two of us going, so. I will RSVP that two of us will be attending.
What time does it start?
I'll get you the information.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's all we have. Has commissioners had a chance to look at the consent agenda? Any concerns, questions on the consent agenda?
I just had one question for staff. It was page 8, check number 1436. It's a contractor on the McIntyre project. I'm just curious what it was for.
You said page 8?
Mm-hmm. Middle of the page. For just over 16,000.
That's the Benish Group. They are doing the inspection services on there.
Okay. And that's for, like, what period? I mean, is that in its entirety, or that's just a bill to date, or how is?
I don't know that without
Okay.
getting the details on it, Commissioner. I can get that for you.
Well, it might be a question I can follow up with Mike. I just was.
Any other questions or concerns? The consent agenda?
I didn't.
Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion that we approve consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? Voting?
Aye.
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 Abstain?
Aye.
We ready for planning and zoning? Joseph, how are you today?
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
We have a proposal in front of you. It's a preliminary and final plat for Madeline Meadows. It's a 7-lot subdivision. They pretty much meet all the regulations. This is a unique situation where there's an airport just adjacent to it, so they have to meet some additional regulations. And they have met all the regulations, and the Planning Commission is recommending approval, 7-0. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I just had one specifically for what you were just talking about with the airport. So I saw the line on the map for the building setback. So that's taken into account the IFR approach for aircraft on the north end of the runway. Is that line saying that I looked through all this stuff and I couldn't find a height for the buildings. Is that line saying there's no construction allowed within that line?
Well,
or-
there's a certain height regulations, restrictions, and Joe is familiar with that,
Okay.
so.
That's why I was wondering what the height ended
Joe
up being.
Herring Survey, 315 Morgan Street, Morning Commissioners. Exactly. The line's not showing that a building can't go in there. The line's showing that it is subject to the county's height restriction per article, whatever that is, 5-20 or 20-5. And in discussion, we've had several meetings, one on site with members of the High Crest Air Park, several email communications trying to determine exactly what that regulation states and how it is to be enforced, and we've come to an agreement that has been relayed to Crystal and staff on how it's interpreted. And the actual purchaser of Lot 5 is aware of it, which is the one that's more heavily impacted in this subdivision. And they're aware that they will have a height restriction on what they can build there for safety of all, for the pilot and for the people in the house.
So is there another map that shows the angle and the height change? You know?
No, there is not a map. It's a 1 to 40 along the center line of the airstrip and a 100-foot strip going north, and then it's 1 to 7 as you extend out from it. So putting elevations on it would be a very detailed.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out how are you gonna regulate, you know, you could put a 30-foot tall building here, but if you want a 40-foot tall building, it's gotta be, you know,
I
back this
assume that
far.
in their site plan that comes before planning and zoning, before they issue a building permit, that
Yeah.
they will have to have the proper height.
Yeah, when they come in for the building permit, we'll be asking for all kinds of details.
Okay.
And also we'll run it by the airport.
Okay.
So
Okay.
just so they agree with it.
Yes, there is a very well-established open line of communication and several people that reply back.
Yeah, the air,
And I think that, probably I'll sit down with Mike and determine what the DIF fee will be on these roads. Because Gilman Road is improved, and I believe it was improved by the developer of High Crest when it was done. So I don't know if the DIF applies to that, so.
we can work on that before you record the plans.
Before we report the plat. And were there any other, since Commissioner Shimke brought up the conditions that raised a red flag, in my opinion, was there anything
Just-
specific,
It's just standard conditions.
standard
Yeah.
conditions? Okay.
FAA doesn't have anything to do with anything like that?
FAA, no, not to my knowledge. I think they've even had somebody reply with FAA regulations.
Okay.
We have a condition that says they have to agree with all those conditions.
Yeah, Commissioner Culberson doesn't have any concerns, I don't.
The trees are higher than what the house will be out there that they have to fly over, so they have other obstacles in their way.
Okay, this requires a public hearing? It doesn't?
Thank you.
Any questions on the plat? Madeline's Meadows, any questions, concerns, commissioners? Then I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we approve case number 19-065-066 for final plat of Madeline Meadows subdivision.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the plat? Voting?
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Before we go to work session, I got another,
Session two.
oh, that's right, we got an executive. Before we, yeah, let's do this. I guess I can give this. I got a letter from,
Doug, do we want to bring up maybe for anybody that's today expecting to hear some business that it's been moved to 20?
oh, okay.
Maybe.
All right. For anyone that came to our meeting today expecting the sand quarry discussion, that was moved to the 28th of August.
Ready for
Ready for
executive session? I move that this board recess from open session and go into a closed executive session to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel as justified by KSA 75-4319B1, and that this board resume open session in the meeting room at 10 o'clock a.m. this morning. Present in the executive session will be Commissioners Jeff Culberson, Vicky Cos, Doug Smith, Chad Shimke, Mike Steben, County Administrator Mark Laughery, County Engineer Mike Spickelmeyer, and Senior County Counselor David Van Paris.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the executive session? Voting?
Aye.
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 Let the record show we returned to regular session, our executive session. The discussion was limited to the topic of non-elected personnel. No decisions were made.
I'd like to move that this board recess from open session and go into closed executive session to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel as justified by KSA 75-4319B1, and that this board resume open session in the meeting room at 10:30 a.m. Present in the executive session will be Commissioners Jeff Culberson, Vicky Cos, Doug Smith, Chad Shimke, Mike Steben, County Administrator Mark Laughery, and County Engineer Mike Spickelmeyer, and Senior County Counselor David Van Paris.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the executive session? Voting?
Aye.
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 Let the record show that we returned to regular session, executive session. The discussion was limited to non-elected personnel. No decisions were made.
Almost got this memorized.
We're going to go again? Okay.
I move that this board recess from open session and go into closed executive session to discuss personnel matters of non-elected personnel as justified by KSA 75-4319B1, and that this board resume open session in the meeting room at 10:50
Okay.
Perfect.
a.m. Present in the executive session will be Commissioners Jeff Culberson, Vicky Cos, Doug Smith, Chad Shimke, Mike Steben, County Administrator Mark Laughery, County Engineer Mike Spickelmeyer, and Senior County Counselor David Van Paris.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the executive session? Seeing none, voting?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Let the record show that we returned to regular session from executive session. Executive session meeting topics was limited to non-elected personnel and no decisions were made. Okay, commissioners have any updates? What they did in the past week? I'll go ahead and start. I went to Basehor City Council and they were discussing urban growth management. They tabled it till August 28th. They will vote on it then. I attended AC Bird's memorial service and did the fair parade last night. And what else we gonna do? Some sit in a booth at the fair for a couple days this week.
I'll ditto Commissioner Stevens so he can report on us.
Yeah. Well, I attended the Tonga City Council meeting previously, and then we made a trip to Washington, D.C., and we attended the conference for local and state officials at the White House for Iowa, Missouri, Nebraska, Kansas, and Oklahoma. And prior to that, Congressman Watkins set up some meetings with the Department of Transportation. We met with them, discussed arterial roads and non-arterial roads and the build projects and basically federal funding mechanisms that could be used to replace the bridge over the river. And what are some ways that we could possibly recoup some funds that are leaving based on personnel at the base. And those type of issues. We also then attended the meeting on Thursday. It was in the afternoon, and the Secretary of Interior spoke. We had discussion on FEMA and disaster response, and there was a panel, and then there was a discussion about land use and reclamation and We had the Secretary of Interior spoke to us, and then at the end, the Vice President of the United States came in and addressed the group. So it was an exciting time, and then the following day, and I have to thank Congressman Watkins' office, because they arranged the meetings with the Department of Transportation, and his staff was very good to us. And then the following day, we met with the Department of Defense at the office of Congressman Watkins, and we also visited about various interactions with the base, Leavenworth base. And I don't know, Vicki, if you have anything else to add?
Nope, that's a good wrap-up to me.
So it was a very good trip. I think we made some good connections with people that we can then come back and interact with to hopefully get the new Culberson Bridge built.
I don't have much I would add. I mean, it's been primarily budget review, budget discussion, budget email, budget. I am going to go, if you can, to the Port Authority meeting today, but that would be my update.
Mr. Culberson?
Not a lot. Attended the meeting of the workforce. I keep wanting to call it job service. It was always
Yeah.
called job service. when I was
Workforce
going.
development.
Yeah, workforce development.
Partnership.
That's it.
Yeah.
And met with some taxpayers that had flood ground in the Missouri River bottoms, get them connected with the NRCS and ASCS folks for some programs for flood relief. And that's about it.
All right, then we'll adjourn.